Hello golfers, this is Bob Laskin with 2MinuteGolf.com on our Let's Take a Look segment. And today's student is Greg Davis. Greg's been playing for 30 years and he was a 20.5 index, and 3 months later he was a 14.5 after 7 lessons. Now, this is not a typical case, but his problems are typical, and Greg's a good athlete, and I always say the athletes are the last to come in because they think they can figure it out on their own. And so, but there's a lot of little nuances to the game that you just have to really make sure the fundamentals are correct, and you can't figure it out. Like Hogan said, reverse every natural instinct you have and do just the opposite of what you're inclined to do, and you'll come very close to having a perfect golf swing. So what that means is what feels natural is usually not right. So here, Greg feels natural with his setup previously, and this is after a few lessons, but it's a tendency to come back and aim the shoulders open to the target, and that's because the backhand has to go below the front hand, and that action right there, when you put your grip down, opens up your shoulders. And so I gave Greg a drill here, and I gave him the cross-handed drill. So put your front arm below, and see how that squares up his shoulders, and then that really helps the path. And so that's a good setup key. A very common problem, open shoulders for everybody. And so on this, we can see where Greg's setup now, shoulders are more square, and he will tell you he feels very awkward on that. But just have to kind of get used to that, to keep the shoulders in line with the feet, knees, hips. It's going to feel a little bit closed, and that's just because we're not gripping it symmetrically with our hands even. The backhand goes under, and that opens up the shoulders. That's why you see a lot of people cross-handed and putting, because a little bit inside-out stroke is better than cutting it. The ball rolls a little better. But same thing on the swing. If you're a little bit inside-out, little draw, it's usually going to be a lot more solid and go a little further. So on swing 1 of today, see, because the shoulders are open, and then the shaft's coming down on his right arm, so that's kind of steep and across. And so on swing 2 here, we did add, if we look below here too, kind of a combination, shoulders and said, make sure you get a good turn, and that more square setup helps that turn, and then drop the right arm inside this line. So that seems extreme, 45 degrees inside out. Drop this arm inside that path, drop the shaft inside, but then that just brings the shaft and arm down on a better path. So the shaft's coming down on his left forearm versus we look at the old one and the shaft's coming down on the right arm. So, this is going to be steep, chunk, take your pick. Fade. This one on the right, shallow. Greg knows what to do. Turning his hips through, releasing the club. Very nice. So the lesson is cross-handed setup to help your shoulders get parallel to your target. Keep your shoulders there, and then just change your hands. And you could do that on putting, chipping, hitting. That applies to everything. So it's a good drill to feel where your shoulders should be at setup.